Pivot to Passion with Deanna, Byrne, and Grant Hatcher, where we actually sit down and have great dialogue about the messy, the funny, and the downright unbelievable. We chat about what we see happening around us in the world, in the spiritual community, and far beyond. Thanks for being here. Enjoy this episode and be sure to share with your friends. We appreciate it.
So my name is Grant Hatcher, and that's my website, granthatcher.com. I'm a meditation instructor, hypnotherapist. I studied psychology in school, and I just sort of blend all of these things along with my life lessons, because I've gone through some pretty hard downs in life, lost some loved ones and things like that, and just learned some tools, that really helped me. And I'm just trying to help other people too, and I think that's how our paths kind of crossed, eh, Deanna?
It is actually. And, we were sort of connected together by Josh.
Yes.
And who's you and Josh have been friends like forever. And and I met Josh a few years ago, actually, when a really good friend of mine, Ruth Sherman, had a horse accident.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know Ruth.
Yeah. And so she was supposed to be paralyzed for life, but it's Ruth. And we ended up doing this massive fundraiser, and we just literally put it out in the community and said, hey, we're going to be doing this fundraiser for Ruth. She's like, because she was an self-employed massage therapist, right? We received, I think we raised like 10 or 15 grand that day. We had therapists coming from all over to set up and do mini treatments and stuff. Anyway, Josh was one of them. And so he had reached out and said, I really feel I need to be involved in this. And and so here's little Joshy. He's tucked back in the corner, looking all handsome and stuff, and he's the longest lineup.
Yeah, of course.
So funny. But we stayed connected over the years, and then that's how kind of you and I connected, which is
great. That's so cool, man. Yeah, I've met a lot of people through Josh. Funny story. I was in Thailand on a tiny island, in Thailand, and met this person. Whatever. You meet so many people traveling and things like that. And so I met Josh just before I went to Thailand. And then I was in a meditation retreat when I kind of started studying mindfulness meditation there. And I was halfway through the retreat and I was like, man, we need this stuff back home because it's a tool that people can access that if you can't go to, meditation isn't therapy, it isn't a substitute, but it can be like a buffer. It can help, it can do some really great things in there. So I was like, we need to give this to people. And so I was like, I want to open my own yoga and meditation studio. Don't know how I'm going to do it. Only person I knew at the time was Josh. And we might have said several sentences to each other. I messaged him. I was like, hey man, thinking about opening up my own yoga and meditation studio in Halifax. You're the only guy I know likes meditation. What do you think? And he's, we're already looking at buildings. We need another business partner. You're on board if you want to be. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. That was it. But I met this person. And so anyways, I moved back to Thailand, moved right in with Josh, and we started the center. And then we're posting pictures. And then this girl was commenting on our pictures. And then she was commenting on Josh's pictures. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny, she must have creeped through me and got to Josh. He's like, oh, no, I met her in Australia or something like that.
Oh my God. It is so weird how things, well, it's not, but and then you meet somebody and then it's like when I was talking to the gentleman today about the app, and I'm like, oh, where are you located? And he goes, oh, I'm in New York. And I said, oh, okay. And he goes, but I'm originally from Canada. Right. And so then we ended up having the whole Canadian conversation about all that. So that was it's like people trust Canadians. They just think we're just these honest, lovely, wonderful human beings that have no anger, frustration, or whatever, right? But it's a small world, and over the years, and I was actually going through my cell phone when I upgraded cell phones about a few months ago, and I'm going through my contact list. I'm like, I don't know who these people are.
Yeah.
But how many times have you been with somebody say, hey man, give me your number? And and the name is John from there and here, and it's who is this you know what I mean? It's yeah. Mine end up being Golden Red Julie.
Yeah.
Because I bump into somebody on a trail and she's like, "Oh, are you gonna breed her? I'll stud her." And
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
then I
yeah.
go through and I'm like, "Who the hell is anyway?"
Yeah.
But so you know what? This has been great. So Pivot to Passion was sort of I kind of started doing the podcasts last year and really talking about just what I felt were topics that people were really engaged with. And at
Yep.
that point, never really thought about partnering with someone to do it, right?
Mm.
And then here we are.
Yeah.
And the feedback from the last one we did was so amazing. And then here we are again. I saw a
Mhm.
stupid meme, you know, and you had posted a bit on your social media about just the vulnerabilities that you'd been feeling, and kind of why don't we lead in there, and if
Sure.
comfortable, start talking about sort of where you went, what happened, and then we'll
Yeah.
kind of go to the meme, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. I also just want to say there are people working on my roof. I know it might come through the audio a little bit. They're supposed to be here this morning, but of course they showed up right before we're about to start this. So bear with this here, but I think it's all right. So, but yeah,
I haven't heard anything, so I think
yeah, I'm thinking people with headphones might pick it up a little more maybe or something, but
yeah.
yeah, so this weekend I was just like, it just kind of happens the way it always happens for me. Like I just start to feel off. You know what I mean? Like I start to feel like, okay, it could be like a tension in my body, just something doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? And then I usually try to slug through a little bit because it's like, oh, like, oh, it's okay. Like, I got to do this, like typical stubborn kind of like things. And then eventually I'm just like, okay, like all this stuff is here. Do the thing that you help everybody else to do,
Right.
feel the feelings, and it's hard to do, because feelings, I remember saying this one time and I was thinking about this on my walk. It's vulnerable being vulnerable, you know what I mean? Like, and so
Yeah.
I just had to feel these feelings that I was feeling, and I had to cry, I just processed the stuff, I was saying like, oh, I'm amounting to nothing in life, and all these, all this stuff that you just kind of come up when you're in a vulnerable state and emotional. And even as I'm saying them, like, I don't fully believe it, but some part of me in that moment kind of did. But after saying them and getting them out and having the cry, I just felt so much better, and I went out, had a little bit of lunch, ate some food, had a cup of coffee, and just did some journaling. And I was like, wow, I just feel like a million times better, so felt so much. Just felt good about that. And I'm, as somebody who just like posts online quite a bit and tries to share like positive things, like I'm not a false positive person by any means, but I do have an incredible life. I'm like engaged to somebody I love very much. Everything is really, really good in my life. And I think people see that, so, but I just wanted to let them know, hey, I didn't share the whole story, but it was like, I had a hard time this weekend, went through some emotions, like I had to have a cry and things like that. It wasn't fun, but I just want to say, it's okay. We're all going through ups and downs, and it's okay to go through ups and downs. And, on social media, we often see the best of everybody's lives. Usually, I know you're pretty vulnerable. You share your stuff too.
Yeah.
But for the most part, a lot of people, we only see the best, and so I think it's important to share those, just to let us know that we're humans and that we all go through these ups and downs. And it didn't blow up, but it had a positive response, and people commenting like, man, I'm feeling the same way. I've been, things are good in my life, but it's like, man, I've just been having a hard week or having this, like, thank you for sharing this and stuff. So I think that's where it came from. Just wanting to be human, because again, the whole reason why I'm doing this work is because I want to try to help people. And I think some of the best ways that we can help people is just by being real people, so that's all I was trying to do with it. So.
And I think that's important because, I actually ended up having a conversation with a fellow colleague. This was, some point last year. I had been approached by a acquaintance of mine from my hometown, and he had been really struggling with some things and really felt that because of the industry he was in, he couldn't really talk to anybody because, he was supposed to be the man, right?
Yeah.
And so we had really great dialogue all around that, and sort of helped him to sort of peel away those layers and step forward into his kind of his own power and go in a different direction in life and all of that.
Yep.
It got the conversation started with my colleague and I about the fact that it is so unfortunate that men have been put in this position.
Yes.
And what we've seen the last 3 years specifically, this conscious awakening of consciousness, and such a huge population. There are so many men going, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It's hard. It's hard. Yeah. And as a man who literally teaches the stuff, I got to go through that cycle almost every single time where it's like I said, I'm like, that typical kind of like, I'm going to work through this. So, I'm going to work my way through, or sometimes, I'll just have a drink, or it's not even a conscious choice where I'm like, I'm going to drink my sorrow away or anything like that. But it's like, we'll have a drink tonight, and it's like, and you don't realize how like sometimes that can numb you out, even in subtle ways. And we kind of talked about it last time, like the phone, getting on social media. It's so easy to distract yourself from your emotions before you have a chance to feel them, and as men especially, I think it's difficult, and all of us, we like our parents, our families and things like that, our peers never really knew how to process the emotions, and we're all kind of learning together, and it's messy and it's scary and it's hard, so anybody who's trying to face those things, it takes a lot of courage, because emotions aren't, again, 1, 2, 3, ABC. It's like, it's so you don't know what's going to happen. So, and
it pops the cork, right?
Yeah, it does.
Like all of a sudden now, for me specifically, so I grew up with 6 brothers, right? So they used my Barbie doll heads as a hockey puck. I mean, it was like, it was brutal. And it was like, oh, for God's sakes, stop, man. You gotta be stronger. Like it was that,
Yeah.
They taught me how to ride a bike by putting me at the top of a mountain and pushed.
Yes. Yeah. And there's something beneficial to that in a way too. Like
there is
something like I think men get a bad rep sometimes, and like, but it's not always that, it's like I grew up in Cape Breton, like the most stoic of men in the world, but I'd say like 1 in 5 are probably an alcoholic, like not even joking. Like it's really sad, and so keep going. Yeah. What you're saying with your brothers and things. Yeah.
It's true. And the thing is like you say, so 1 in 5 is an alcoholic. That really goes to, it's like when I look at my brothers now that were older, and we had some dirty family stuff come up last year that we were all trying to work together and process individually, because it affected us all on individual levels, right? And so for me, I'm just like, I'm just gonna make a video. I'm just gonna do a podcast. That's how I'm gonna get it done, right?
Yeah.
My brothers were like, you don't talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I do. So you know what? It's those again, there's that definition. Then when I look at the men in my life, brothers, friends, colleagues, that people who have come from environments where it was like you don't cry, you don't talk about your feelings, you support your family and whatever. When I look at that age demographic now, they're hurting, because
they're hurting, man.
They don't know how to it's not okay to go get help.
No.
So what do? They drink. They become the 1 in 5.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. I remember when I learned not to cry from pain. I was 11 or 12, and we were at school. I remember exactly what happened. We were like pretending we were like having a race with a horse, and like there's 4 of us, so it was 2 on 2 kind of, and I had to skip a rope around my buddy's waist, and then whoever raced him had to skip a rope, and the horse was in front of whoever my buddy was, and then we were running, but I was like faster than my buddy, I guess, and I stepped on his foot and then fell, and he like kicked me in the mouth when I fell. And I remember just like the normal like, and I just went, I don't need to cry. And then I remember just feeling so proud of myself, like that I didn't need to cry there. And like I stuffed it down, and like, I had a little cut in my lip and stuff like that. And like, but that was the first moment when I realized I could just suck it out. Like I don't need to cry. That's physical pain. Physical pain's a little different than emotional pain, but I knew then that I could take an emotion and go like in that moment. Like that's what It taught, and I remember feeling proud about that. Like, wow, look at me. Like, I'm a man. That kind of what it felt like, you know? Yeah.
You know what is so frustrating about that is because now, and I still see it, you know, and especially with social media, I have a lot of people on my social media from when I grew up, you know, I grew up in Digby, right? You know, similar to Cape Breton.
Same idea. Yeah.
Exact same idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, so a lot of these people that I grew up with, it's the same kind of thing, you know, and it makes me sad. Like, I'll have male friends and I'll say, you know, hey, you okay? Like, you want to talk about it? And they look at me like I have four heads, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, the offer's there. There's, you know, there's no ulterior motive. There's nothing. I'm just concerned about you.
Yes.
Because you're off, but yet they'll ask me if I'm off, like it's expected. It's the whole programming, the societal programming around vulnerability and emotions has been so incredibly ingrained and massive. It's generational trauma at this point, as far as I'm concerned, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And so then I sent you that meme that I'm gonna open that up here. And so it was two things. So there was the spiritual bypassing versus authentic healing. Spiritual bypassing is categorized as the fragmentation versus the authentic healing is sort of the wholeness. Now, my dog is playing with her toys. So if you hear the squeaky, that's the dog. So I've got the squeaky, you've got the roofers, right?
Yeah.
So the spiritual bypassing is definitely, I'm just going to see if I can actually possibly screen share. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so that I can hide things, because I just feel that it might be a little bit better if I do that. So share screen. Let's see. I want to do this. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it's just going to let me just do that.
Oh, something's happening.
What's going on?
It's low. Oh yeah, you got it.
Did I get it?
Yep.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so hopefully we can get back to where we need to go. So
one step at a time here.
So let's talk about that. So we've got the spiritual bypassing versus authentic healing. Now, I'm honestly, my friend had posted that, and this is just where I was, and I want to get your feedback. My initial response when I saw that was, you know what, we need to do a little bit of both, because if we go back to our conversation last week about the whole self-love movement and people sort of getting stuck in that mindset, I also feel that when people go through the authentic healing, they can sit there and not move forward. They're stuck in that cement of hurt and sadness and all of those things. And because those particular emotions are heavier than the other ones, it's like cement. So what's your thought on that?
I agree 100%. You nailed it. You know, we got to look at it like almost like a spectrum in a sense. And I like to imagine our higher levels. So just like think about, I don't want to throw some religions under the bus, but you know, some religions and things like that, they focused on the high vibes, you know what I mean? And like ignore our humanness almost, you know, and our humanness is messy. It's messy being a human. It's emotional. There's rage, there's anger, there's sex, there's this, there's that. And when we ignore those things, they sort of compound until they come out like a spring, you know, but once you kind of have a more integrated, when you embrace your higher consciousness and the lower vibes, as the meme here kind of says, then you can go into the low vibes with an anchor in the high vibes. You know, it's almost like if we're using this direct up and down image here, you can rappel down and do some work, but you don't want to hang out there forever because it's heavy. It's anger. It's stuff that's difficult. And when you do a little bit of work, you want to climb back out of there, you know? So it's good to have that anchor. You know, I say have an anchor in the light. If we're thinking yin and yang, light and dark, or heavier emotions, again, if you're doing the shadow work, you're getting in there, you can get lost in there. And a lot of people are lost in there. That's why I think it's important to have, that's why I teach some spiritual stuff, because it's important to have that outlet it's important to be able to disconnect from your immediate human experience because it can get so heavy and tough, you know? So being able to have an anchor in the light to go down into the deep dirty where the trauma is and stuff like that, it helps you to come back, you know? But if you're all light and you're ignoring that stuff, they're like the most annoying people in the world, right? They're like,
Oh,
hi, yeah. You can just see, you can just tell, you
I
know?
know.
It's like, yeah.
They remind me of the non-smokers.
Yeah. They're
You
just like
know,
looking down upon you, like,
I
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And I remember when we opened our boutique right before COVID hit, actually, we had this gorgeous little boutique in Windsor, and people would come into the shop, and there would be people that would come in there and they would like look down on us, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
And I said, and so finally I would just start doing the whole customer service, you know, I have a boutique, they're going to buy things, whatever. And then I just started saying, so, you know, that's your ego center, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, you like, if you're there, you are so far away from here, up here. If you're stuck here, you're so far away from up here. They
Yeah.
think they're doing the high vibe thing.
Yeah.
They think they are. It's the same as you can write as many positive affirmations on sticky notes and put them all over your house as you want to. But if you don't truly believe the content,
Yeah.
it means nothing.
Yeah. It's a pretty common pattern, right? And again, in some religions we see that, you know, you're getting all these beautiful lessons in religions. A lot of them have so many, like, the good, it's all there in all those religions, but sometimes they just don't, they apply it in the way they want to, you know what I mean? And it's you know, and it's our ego is really good at doing that. It's like, oh yeah, I do this thing, therefore, you know, but it's like, we're all humans, man. Like, yeah, we're all humans, you know? So it's like, we got to embrace the humanness. We're a whole, you know, it's all of this together. And what happens when we do the spiritual bypassing, it's like, how many gurus have we heard and seen that have just done horrendous things, you know? How many, because they're putting on this thing, you know, putting people on pedestals, you know, and it's bound to topple, you know, and we need to be grounded as well. And a part of being grounded is going down through the muck, going down through the gunk, and, you know, it's hard work, but it brings balance. And if you don't do it, it'll force you to do it. So, or it'll force you, you know, it'll throw it in your face in the worst kind of way. It'll give you little reminders, little pokes, like, hey, remember this stuff that, you know, we're supposed to work on? Okay. And then maybe another month we'll be like, okay, it's like, hey, this stuff here, man, like, come on. And then something will come up. And it's and if you honestly, like, I don't even think this is like anything to doubt, but if we don't deal with those emotional things and stuff, it will come across as some sort of physical illness. Like, I'm pretty confident in saying that, you know?
Oh, everything manifests. And I want to circle back to the gurus for a minute, because here we have a scenario where I'm going to use an example. So many years ago, I was invited to do a therapeutic touch workshop in Tatamagouche at the Tatamagouche Center. And it was literally, we're talking almost 30 years ago at this point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I remember I'm at this workshop, and I had never actually experienced energy before. So
Yeah.
we're at the workshop, and the facilitator says, okay, so now we're going to modulate energy, right? So, you know, we're doing this thing with our hands, and we're visualizing moving energy and modulating energy onto our partner and whatever. So then she said, we're going to do color modulation. So you pick a color in your mind, you visualize that you're giving that color to your partner, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so my partner is a male, and he's doing this energy on my neck. And I remember it so incredibly strong. I was sitting there, and I remember thinking, oh my God, right? And afterwards, the instructor said, so tell us about your experience. And I said, I felt like I needed a cigarette, like when I was done. And
Yeah.
he started laughing. And keeping in mind, I had never met this person before. And she said, "Well, what color did you use?" And he said, "Well, pink." And the instructor said, "Well, what did you use as for visualization?" He said, "Well, all I could see were pink satin sheets." Now,
Oh my goodness.
in that moment, I learned so many things, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I learned the power of energy, the power
Yeah.
of energy modulation, but I also learned the power of vulnerability in an energetic situation.
Yeah.
So let's go to the gurus for a minute. It's the
Hmm.
exact same sort of feeling that you connect to this group of people, whatever the group of people is, and you're doing whatever, and it could be a retreat, it could be a meditation center, it could be whatever. And this guru, the majority of them are they are definitely sitting in a seat of ego, right?
Hmm.
But they've also mastered energy modulation at massive proportions. And
Hmm.
these people then feel that vulnerability, that this unhealthy sexual connection
Yeah.
to these gurus.
Yeah. Yes. And I
And
think a thing too is like where if you think of the traditional chakra system, where is our emotions at? It tends to be in our sacral area, you
right,
know. So when we break ourselves open emotionally, it's easy to connect those emotions to that person in an intimate way, you know, and
yeah,
like it's like if you're vulnerable with anybody in any way, there is some sort of like connection there, you know what I mean? Especially if you haven't been able to be vulnerable with people before, you know, in that way, it can easily quickly turn into, you know, an emotional relationship. And that's why therapists and things are very strictly trained on how to handle those relationships. Yeah.
absolutely. And I remember when I first started getting sort of into the whole industry, and started upgrading my training and things like that. And then I would go to, for an example, like the reflexology program was so
Yeah.
incredibly structured and science-based and ethics and code of ethics conduct and so on. The aromatherapy, those sorts of things. I found the energy medicine ones were not. And
Mm,
that is where we got into trouble,
yeah.
because that should literally be something that is taught, that there is a code of ethics and conduct. I mean, it's much better now. It's gotten much better
Yes.
years,
Yes.
but it was a very, very challenging time. And
Yes.
look at Reiki as an example. Original Reiki, you didn't get a master's in a weekend
No, it
at
was
all.
a long time and like very, very few people got it. Yeah.
That's right, because you had to go through the shit,
Yeah.
right? You had to sit at the shit buffet. That's
Yeah.
gonna be like that's gonna be like our trademark, right? The shit buffet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna have to sit at the shit buffet. You're gonna have to deal with your shit, and if you don't deal with it, like you say, it's gonna manifest into something physical. That
Yeah.
that energy, years ago, I had a friend who was in a situation where she had had a trauma in her family, and she was very hurt by that trauma. It affected her very deeply on an emotional level. And it was a prominent family. And she was basically told, it's been dealt with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Within 12 months, she had her thyroid removed.
Ooh, yeah. She wasn't able to release it, you know, and
Yeah,
yeah. And I think there's something about that. I kind of wanted to touch on it when we were talking about Cape Breton and things like that. And I think it's everywhere, but there's a lot of shame with this stuff, right? We feel so much shame with our family history, you know, like even me growing up, it was like, oh man, it's like, shh, we don't talk about that. You know, we, like you were saying, you know, there's a lot of shame and like, it's like, but like keeping it in and like causes so much more trouble, you know. I mean, if we only talked about these things, you know, it would be a lot better. But I think it was like everybody was trying to save face, but in reality, it ended up backfiring, you know, in the long run. And the trauma we don't deal with, it's passed on to our next generations, to and everybody around us. It impacts everything we do, right? So it's again, I'm not saying we want to be down there digging in the dirt all the time. Like it's not, it's not fun to be there, it's but we need to sometimes, and to kind of go back to the idea of the high vibe, low vibe, people who are stuck in the dirt, they need that high vibe stuff. So I think what happened is that here we are, us lonely little humans living and struggling and feeling and all these things. And certain people had their spiritual awakening, and it was like, oh my God, it's like, wow, I feel so free. I want to share this with so many people. Like, you know what I mean? So I think the intention behind, all religions and all the early new age spirituality people, like the high vibing people, like I think their intentions were good. They really wanted people to feel that as well, but they forgot to integrate the lower stuff as well. So it's both. We're both. So that's the important thing.
It is. And I mean, so if we go back to sort of the fragmentation part of it, so the high vibe, so talking sort of about balance. So when you're in the reality is so let's just look at the last 3 years. The majority of the population have literally sat in the resistance area, the sadness, the rage, the grief, the hurt. All now, grief being loss of their lifestyles, loss
Yes.
of connection. We talked during our last podcast about the importance of human connection, human
Yes.
physical connection, right?
Yes.
So all of that. So then what happens is we also created the whole love and light people who were stuck in the high vibe, but the fake high vibe, like we said, right?
Yeah.
Because how can you have ascension and love and peace and joy and flow if you're stuck at home in isolation and you can't see anybody that you love? It's kind of hard to be in that vibe, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So then moving over to the authentic healing, the wholeness part of it, that is, like you said, it's important to sit within the areas. So there we've got like the hurt, sadness, joy, grief, love, peace, rage, all of those things. So you know what? I'm raging today. So I went for a drive and I got really pissed off at somebody. Why? So sit with that for a minute and peel away the why. And then when you get to the why, you can connect it to, as an example, let's just say I had rage and I peel away the layers and I move it over and I realize it's connected to grief. And then I realize, oh my gosh, you know what? This would have been a certain anniversary of my husband's death or something like that.
Yes.
And then I can transition from that to the joy of how lucky was I to have him for 20 years.
Yes.
So there's the healthy process of moving from the lower frequency emotion.
Yes.
Feeling it, peeling it, and getting up to the higher. But
right.
If we don't allow ourselves to feel it, and try to understand why, then we're just pissed off.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where, again, these are traditional, there's obviously differences for everybody, but where most men end up, it's like anger, it's this frustration, it's this anger, but we don't get a chance to get beyond that, at least traditionally, that's kind of how it's been for most men, I think. And a lot of women as well, we kind of, again, kind of talking about like what I was saying at the start with my post, first I'm like pushing through this thing, and then it's like, and I'm stubbing my toe and then I'm getting mad and I slam a cupboard door or something and then something breaks. It's like, holy fuck, nothing's working here. Like,
right?
It's so funny. I've done it many times where like, I remember this was before I went to Thailand and like becoming aware, okay, I'm getting more and more frustrated here. And I was washing dishes and I was like scrubbing the dishes. I don't know what I was being frustrated. I have no idea. And I like was bent over and I stood up and like the cupboard door was open and the corner of the cupboard door like hit me right on top of the head. It literally like dropped me to the floor. Like I just fell like a ton of bricks. And like I literally like felt like a baby. I almost like curled up in the fetal position, like ready to bawl my eyes out. I was like, and then I just started laughing so hard. Like I literally had to smack myself upside the head to stop for a second and just feel what the heck was going on here, you know? But it's
Yeah.
like, we often don't, or a lot of people don't get past that anger and frustration. And then it can mess with so much stuff. It can mess with your, you know, your relationships and your life. And and you know, and it's hard. It's scary to get in there though. But, you know, as we've kind of said in this podcast and the last one, like once you do, like you said, a picture the yin and yang, you know, you got the black side and then the white side. You go into the black side, and what's there? A little white dot. You know, you come through. You can go through the darkness to get to the light, and you can go through the light to get to the darkness. Imagine those high vibe people, all high vibes.
That's right.
Comes out
I'm
like
all
shit,
light.
man.
I'm light.
Yeah. I know. You actually got a big fucking shit stain on your forehead, bud. There's.
You know, it is so true because I mean, at the end of the day, we have to. I had a friend. This actually truly happened, and I had a friend tell me last year that I was a lot, right?
Mm.
And I mean, I know that.
Yeah.
I'm aware, but I was also going through a lot, and this is something that was a huge epiphany for me last year. Is before my husband died, he was my person. He was the person that I bounced things off of.
Yes.
Good, bad, ugly, messy, didn't matter, right? And he also was amazing at giving me time to be sad or self-pity. And then he said, okay, get the fuck up. That's it.
Yes,
like,
yes.
We're moving on right now.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I had my dog. My dog doesn't do that for me.
Yeah.
So then, for an example, I would be out with people, and they would be like, "Oh, how you doing?" And I'd be like verbal diarrhea of how I'm doing, and I understood that I was a lot because everybody was carrying their own heavy load as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, but I have to tell you, those words have played with my head. For months, because when I start to feel like I need to release, I was swallowing it again.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to bother anybody. And then what happened? Oh, I don't know. I get amnesia.
Yeah. It's a balance, right? It's like, you know, your husband there again. That's the beauty of the sort of traditional male energy. It's like,
yes.
Okay, yeah, but now let's move on. You know, it's like there is something to that as well. Like I said, we don't want to be buried in there all the time. And I think when it comes to that stuff, we need to know who our outlets are. Like I'm really lucky to have my fiance, and also I've during the pandemic, because everything was so difficult, a couple male friends of mine who are brilliant, you know, doing the work. Like, man, we just need to talk more. Like, we need to communicate. So we made an effort to rekindle our connection, even though I was like on the other side of the country at the time too. And we were vulnerable with each other, and we were able to, you know, so you need to find the people. And if you don't, you know, like a therapist, and then it's like, I think sometimes all the difference in that spot is just asking, is it okay if I unload here, you know, because maybe the person isn't emotionally able to take it on, you know, maybe they're like, holy fuck, I don't think so, man, like I'm fucked too, you know, or maybe then you can do it together, you know. I find that asking, you know, can really help in that spot.
That I am so glad you just brought that up, because that has been something that I have seen a lot of. Because let's step back into this whole, you know, it doesn't serve me movement, you know, the self-love, right? I see so many people post on social media things like, you really find out who your friends are when you're down, that sort of stuff. And it irks me so bad. Yeah. Because I'm like, maybe your friend is like teetering on the verge of like not wanting to be alive.
Yeah.
As how, you know, like, how about starting the conversation with, hey guys, just checking in. How's everything doing? You know, I know you're going through a lot. You're opening the dialogue.
Yes.
Right. And then you're able to share bits. And you know what? Don't dominate the conversation. Allow everybody to speak. Allow everybody to unload. Carry what you can. I have amazing friends where if they message me, I just say, guys, I got nothing.
Yeah.
And they're the same with me. Like I have a friend, she'll say to me, listen, I got a lot going on, but I'm here 3 a.m. You need me, I'm there.
Yes.
But I don't have the energy right now to give you the whole everyday what's up. Like how amazingly incredible is that honesty, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then you
Yeah.
never feel it's consent, right? You don't, and then you're never like, oh my God, like, and then and then on the flip side, as somebody who's receiving the stuff, I think it's also important to ask, and this is like very important, I think, for men, myself included, who's learned this mistake many times, is that we're fixers. Men are fixers. We're like, okay,
Yes.
you tell me
Yes.
your problem, I'm going to tell you how to fix it. But asking the person, do you want solutions in this situation? Do you want me to help you with that? Or do you just need some space for it to come out and just release, And because I think that's really key, right? Because sometimes when you're saying your stuff, you don't want somebody picking through it. Like, oh, well, if this was done this way, then maybe, sometimes you just want to, and that's what needs to happen. So, and I think as men, and I'm just speaking from experience, it's difficult to do that for us because we want to try to fix the problem. We're
Yeah.
solvers and things like that. So I think, asking for permission to express, and then the person receiving, okay, do you want me to just hold space for you, or do you want me to, and often what happens for the first one or the second one, when you're just holding space, once that happens, kind of the solution begins to work its way in eventually anyway,
Yes.
because you're not in the middle of it now. You
Yeah.
let it out, and now you got a little space and you can kind of see it, But when you're in the middle of it and somebody's trying to tell you what you should be doing, it can shut you down, right?
Because 90% of the time you already know you fucked up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you already know you probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
This is the outcome, but you did
Yeah.
it anyway for whatever the reasoning is. The
Yeah.
last thing that you wanted to hear is to be reprimanded for your decisions. I mean,
Yes.
I would start my conversations with, okay, so nobody died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, but hear me out. But you know what? A really good way to start a dialogue like that, when somebody is unloading, is say, is there anything I can do to help you?
Yeah. Yeah. Like what you need. Yeah. Yeah.
And shut up and
Yeah.
listen,
Yeah.
right? Hi Charlie. It is like, be the owl. Be the owl. Sit
Mm.
and listen. And
Yes.
listen to learn, not listen to talk. That's the
Yes.
other big thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's interesting because we're going through this whole identity crisis in the world. Am I a man? Am I a woman? How do I define? Am I us,
Mm-hmm.
them, me? I don't even know, right? I respect their values. I respect where they're going. And I support their movement 100%. If it's what they truly want and need in their lives, right? It has added a whole other layer of, how do you talk about male female energy
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in the landscape, right?
Yeah.
And so I've really had to step back and kind of reword how I do that, because historically male energy was the man. No,
Yeah.
no. Male energy is, like you say, if you look at the yin and yang, it's the provider, the doer, the fixer, the whatever,
Yeah.
the yin's the nurturer, the lover, the,
Mm-hmm.
but that can be either, that can
Can
be,
be anybody. Yeah.
it could be anybody. It's a
Yeah.
personality trait of a human being.
Yes. And I think those are probably the two best words, yin and yang, right? That's
Yeah.
probably the most less charged words there is. And and I think what we're seeing is, like, we had our traditional gender roles. Men did this, women did that, we
Right.
lived in that so long. Now it's christened and crossing a little bit, and I think all it is that there are some men, again, I get the mixed up, but there's some men with more yin energy, and then that expresses them, whereas there's some women with more yang energy, and
Yeah.
and for me personally, I can feel those two energies inside of myself, and
Yeah, me
given
too.
the moment, given the day, I can be more feminine or I could be more masculine, depending on what I'm doing, like, or so it's like, and I think people who might be born as a man but feel they're a woman is because they have more of that
It's
opposite
the
energy
energy.
side. Yeah.
It's
I
the
think
energy.
so. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
the unfortunate part is societal programming is what is in my opinion, is literally what caused this identity crisis
Mm.
that we're going through, because rather than being taught, we have dual energies within
Yes.
our bodies, within our psyche, within our thinking. We, you express and you sit within those as you need to. You pull from what you have to pull from. If you need to cry, you're going to cry. If you need to stand up, brush off your knees, wipe away your tears, slap yourself in the face and keep pushing forward, that's what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than be told, oh, you shouldn't cry.
Yes. Yeah.
So we've literally created this fuckery
Yep.
that we're seeing evolve around us, because
Yeah.
of the fact that so much was stifled for so
Yes.
long.
I
And
think I know. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's coming out in different ways, right? It's coming out, and yeah, it's man, it's such a tough time for people who feel different inside themselves than what
yeah,
the outward, you know what I mean? Like I can't imagine how hard that must be for them, and so it's an interesting time for everybody right now for that. Yeah. And
it's
and I've always just understood it to be an energy thing, because I
yeah,
felt light and darkness, this masculine, feminine energy inside of me after doing some pretty deep healing work, and as a man, like feeling how the feminine manifests inside of me, and collectively how the sort of masculine energy has really pressed down the feminine energy, and to the point that it's the feminine, the divine feminine feels wounded, and I could feel that
yes,
inside of myself, and but the divine masculine, because these energies go together, it means the divine masculine has to be wounded as well. It can't not be the other, so I think we're trying to find a balance here. So I think, and we're trying to move collectively to this balance, but it's
yes.
it's taken time to come out, and it's coming out in all sorts of different ways, which it's okay. We're trying to get there in whatever way it is that we're trying to get there, so
And I feel that if people could step back for a moment and literally just honor other people's expressions, however they express themselves, whatever they
yeah.
choose to do, at the end of the day, that is their decision. And
Mm-hmm.
we're also evolving as a species in terms of, being so stuck with the old views and old values that really didn't do us any good,
Yeah.
overall. So we have a whole generation stuck in that cement,
Yes.
right? We have the next generation who are starting to step out of the cement and sort of tap their toes into the holy water of life.
Yeah.
And then you have the next generation is like, woohoo!
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's like, yeah.
I feel like we've got these three generations just bombarding each other with opinions and
Yeah.
all of those, and then just throw the media's opinion in there. Well, it's just a circus, right?
Oh man, it's rough. Yeah, it's rough with the media and everything. And then it'd be nice if everybody could just sit down and like have open conversations about it. It would probably just be fine. But because there's this like it's like we're pinning this side against that side, and from social media, it's easy to take a jab, with people you don't disagree with. But if you actually like, I've had encounters with people who I grew up with online, I grew up with in person, who we've always been cordial and great in person, but like hit clash online, but if we had those online conversations in person, I can almost guarantee none of the nasty stuff would come out, and I think when it comes to the generational divides, it's like, I think that's why we like die, because like we need to recycle, like it's like,
Oh God, can you
every
imagine?
generation, yeah, who comes up, it's like, oh, the crazy old kids, like, and it's like, and it's funny, like, to kind of like see that, like, I'm gonna be turning 35, not old by any means, but I'm not 20 anymore, but so it's like, it's funny to see the differences. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of in this middle ground now. Oh yeah, it's like, I wonder if I'm hoping I don't want to be like old and try to be too hip, I don't want to force it, but it's like, I'm curious to see how that goes for me when I get there. But yeah, and I think both sides have a point, right? Like it goes like, and I think it's beautiful to see our youth really gung-ho and just like, I heard a really cool
generation of fixers. They
Yeah.
are the generation of fixers because
Yeah.
they are not taking no for an answer.
No, I heard a guy, his name is Keith. He's a cacao shaman in Guatemala. And I
Okay.
sat on one of the sessions and he explained it beautifully. And I think Keith's in his 50s or 60s. And he was saying, you know, he's like, my generation came through and we were like in the jungle, just like hacking through the bush, you know, like, and then pointing to the next generation, like my generation or whoever, kind of like the ones who are like paving the roads, you know,
Yep.
and then the generation coming behind us are the ones in the rocket ships taking off on the runway that we built, you know? So it's like we're building off of it, but it's important to know the slugfest that the older generations had to go through. There's value there. We need to understand how difficult things were and things. And, you know, it like the societies that embrace the youth and their elders, like those are the societies, again, the whole, right? We're all a part of this. And I think maybe our society doesn't do a great job with that. You know, our poor elders are just stuck in like these, you know, we just kind of toss them off, you know, like no benefit to anybody in certain ways, you know, and it's we need to learn to integrate all these things because youth's incredible, you know, they're just so, like, I remember my nephew like jumping off the table, landing on his knees when he was like 3 years old and being like, ha ha ha, and getting up and doing it again, like bang. We're just like, oh my God. But like, just like the youth are invincible, man. They are, you know,
I know.
but like they don't know enough to know enough, you know, but that's their gift, you know, and their curse. And the old know enough to know enough, and that's their gift, but also their curse, right? So it's about trying to find a blend. Like, I think the ideal society would be where we learn from our elders, but we're inspired by our youth together somehow. Yeah.
What a concept. You know, I was sitting there last night and I had a friend post something about this new 15-minute city thing. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't really get involved in even looking it up or trying to figure it out. I was seeing a lot of negative around it. And finally I thought, you know, I should probably look into this because I really don't know much.
What was it? 15? What was it?
The 15-minute city is what it's called. And it's this whole new concept of, now I've not checked into it. So for those of you anti 15-minute cityers, do not send me an email. Okay. Just let me.
Deanna's a 15-minute cityr now. Yeah.
That's right. So when I looked it up, now the conspiracy theorists and stuff like that have a whole other view on it. And I understand that. And not even conspiracy theorists, people that are, the conspiracy theorists are way over the top, but then there's people who are just being open-minded to what's happening around.
You get lumped into that category, which is
very unfortunate.
Yes, so, it's a dangerous thing.
It is. So my friend had posted something, and he's not the conspiracy theorist. He's the more logical. Guys, like, we got to really look at this. Now, when I looked it up a little bit last night, I was super tired, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time in it. But when I looked it up, it was really about the concept, and I believe it was first rolled out in Paris, where they defined that from a society standpoint, that every human being should have the right to have all of their basic needs met within a 15-minute walking distance. Okay. Now, that is an amazing concept if that was the case. Now, Canada is huge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How are you going to deal with rural Canada?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful if the concept was as beautifully sounding as the sales pitch was, right?
Yeah.
And like I say again, I've not really looked into it much, and I'm going to. But my point was, as I was looking at that and I was thinking, if there is some ulterior motive to this, because apparently, you know, the World Economic Forum is connected to it somehow. There's a bit of darkness to it, but this is what I'm thinking. If there was darkness attached to that, and if there was an ulterior motive, what better time to approach the masses after keeping them locked down in their own homes for months?
Yeah.
When they were craving being able to get out and connect with people, getting out to spend time, you know, walking somewhere. Gas is $1.50 a liter. How great would it be if you could just walk 5 minutes to get your groceries, and so on, so on, so on. So to me, as I was reading it, I was seeing value in the concept of that's going to bring us back to the whole concept. It takes a village, right?
Yes.
Because we are so far past that.
Yes.
that we've become a bunch of selfish sons of bitches.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like somebody falls down on the side of the road and they're injured, and we videotape them and put it on TikTok.
Yeah, I thought of that. I was riding my bike last night, and like it snowed and it was cold, it was icy, and I kind of like slipped, and I imagined like falling and hurting myself, and then being like, somebody would probably maybe just film this and laugh and move on, you know, like maybe, yeah.
How, like, I mean, I'm like, it's appalling to me, but that is really where we are. And so I kind of feel there's a part of me that kind of feels like we gotta pull in the reins a bit here.
Yeah.
Somehow, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, at this point, if let's keep it real, if there was some natural disaster tomorrow, we're doomed.
Yeah, it'd be tough, you know, but it's sometimes that's what it takes to shake it up and be like, oh my God, we're all in this together, you know. I remember it, man. I remember it was the saddest thing in a way. I took this class in first year university, and it was called The Roots of Peace and Conflict. And it was this woman was teaching it who was a very worldly woman, and she knew a lot about, you know, the ongoings in, you know, other parts in the world. Like, I'm just a young white boy, grew up in those beautiful parts, Cape Breton, you know, yeah, they were suffering, but not to the level maybe of what, you know, some other places are. So I got to learn a lot in that class. And we all, like, it was really like smart people in the class, and just had a discussion, like, what's it going to take for us all to kind of come together?
Yeah.
And one of the things was like maybe like an alien invasion or something, like, and then we'll all group together as one, which was like, I was like, man, that sounds so bad. Like that was kind of the conclusion of the class, honestly. And it was just like, what the hell, man? Like, can't we come together like without that? But sometimes, you know, like it takes a whack in the face for us to remember, like, oh my God. But yeah, it's interesting time right now, and that city thing, that 15 minutes is so interesting, because like that makes so much sense in a city, but there's also like some people's needs is like nothing, you know. It's like, I need to be out in acres and acres of land. And so I think that's the conspiracy, is that we're trying to get everybody together in one spot, not
herd them, like almost like a herding sort of thing.
And,
and I mean, so I mean, I am going to spend a bit of time, and I, you know, as with everything that has happened in the last 3 years, I have spent a significant amount of time looking at both sides.
Yes.
Right? Fully understanding both sides, basing my own personal opinion on what I came to in terms of my research, my data, and all of that. If Bob told me I should think like this, I did not think like that. As you know, but the majority of people did. So but now let's circle right back to emotions again. So now, because of the fact that all of that has happened, and it was so incredibly predominant and in our face for so long, and that people were literally trying to survive and live in fight or flight mode with massive doses of adrenaline being pumped into their body every single day. Now their bodies are so fucked that their emotion, they don't know how to be emotional. It's either absolute rage or complete and total despair.
It's the extremes, right? It's the extremes that are so difficult to deal with, you know. And that's kind of where, like, you just sometimes you do need to tap out. Like, you need to tap out of the narrative, whatever your narrative is, you know, whatever side of the coin you're on here, you know, or whether you're right in the middle and you have no idea what the heck to think, you know. It's like sometimes you just need to let go and just be present in what's around you. And I think that's where the one thing, like, imagining the city thing is like, we need to be in nature. We need to just be in nature sometimes. Like, we just need to be out there, because when we're in our little sphere, it's like these things bounce off. It's like in this room. I'm in this room here, you know, it's not huge, not small, but like if I was only in this room, like it feels like it closes in on you, you know, whereas nature is expansive, and like thoughts can just like be released and feelings can be released, you know. And these extremes, man, they're volatile, you know, whatever they are. And I hope that, you know, with any extreme, when we fling ourselves out to the edge, we realize, oh, this side doesn't quite work out here, but it's almost always that I've noticed somewhere's in the middle, like always, like studied psychology in school, and it was so funny. Like the history of psychology, it's like it was always like, oh well, it's this, or no, and then the other side is like, no, it's that. And what
Yeah.
happens, interestingly, is that these two sides clash so hard that a lot of really, like, this side fights so hard for its right to live, and this side fights so hard for its right to live. They all make incredibly great points. But then at the end of the day, once everybody like 30, 40 years are out of it a little bit, they look back on it like, oh, well, they're both right. Like nature,
Yeah.
or was it nurture? And both sides fought vehemently that nature was right and then nurture was right. Oh no, now we know it's both. So I've just kind of learned, and I've just been noticing the duality of everything. I was like, well, it's probably both, guys. It's kind of like, but it's like we seem to need to go to these extremes for some reason before we learn it. It's like learning the lesson the hard way, maybe. I don't know.
And I feel like that's almost like what we're taught. But there is, and I know you have to go here in a couple of minutes because you have an appointment soon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that just brought me to something that I was actually working on today, which is called the Snyder analogy or cider analogy. Do you know? Have you heard of that?
I don't know.
Okay, so cider analogy. So basically, if you are at a point where you're trying to make a decision on something, come to a determination on something in your life, even this could even really be applied to working through an emotion that you were. So let's take, cider, SYDER. So the analogy is S, start by always setting goals in a positive sense, right? That is, you focus on what you want rather than what you don't want. So if you're in the midst of an emotional decision, you're not going to be focusing, I'm so sad. You're going to focus, right? You're going to focus on, okay, so what do I have to do to feel better?
Yeah.
Reframe the wording, right?
Yeah.
Then why? You own it. This is my favorite. So owning it means owning everything, even your mistakes and failures. When this happens, as they sometimes will, you can stop and ask yourself what you can do to change the outcome going forward. You can also ask yourself what you can do to influence the outcome or what you would need to do to achieve this particular goal. So again, you're having internal dialogue as well, right?
Yeah.
D, defined in sensory specific terms. Start by picking a specific date in which you intended this outcome to be realized or manifested. Next, put yourself in a visualization of actually having it. Picture what it feels like to be there in a sense of the word. Touch it, see it, feel it, and have it. Make sure that the image in your mind of the goal is sensory rich, vivid, and compelling. Now, you can do that with your emotions as well. Because if you're really sad, you could say to yourself, you know what, I'm just going to sit here for like 40 minutes. As an example, set that clock in your mind. So you're honoring the fact that you're upset. Yep. You're allowing yourself time to process it, and then you are moving past it. So you're actually, you're scheduling it in. And I know that sounds super weird, but it actually works, right?
Yeah.
Then we go to E, ecology, effects on every area of your life. So this essentially is like risk. It's like a risk assessment, right?
Right.
How the goal will affect every area of your life. And you could do the same as how sitting in the shit pile is going to affect every area of your life. Same idea. Start by asking what will happen when you have this and what won't happen when you have this.
Yeah.
You can ask yourself if there are any downsides to achieving your goal. Next, try asking yourself how having this outcome will affect every area of your life, and examine also, this is the thing people don't do, how does it affect other people around you? How does it affect your family, your loved ones, your friends, your community, and even the planet, really?
Yes, absolutely.
And then really do a deep soul searching check and ask yourself how you truly feel about this goal. And do you want it 100%? So it's the same thing. It's like, if you're super angry at something, are you really? Right? Or is this just a side effect of something else?
Right.
And that's where you get into the feeling it, right? So now R, resources en route. This is where you ask yourself what resources you have that will help you reach your goal, and what additional resources do you need. It's much easier to work out how to get to your goal once you've gotten there in your mind, right? So in the end, you need to put yourself in a position of already having achieved the goal. By going through this process, you can also see what had to be put in place immediately before allowing this goal to happen. Keep examining what had to be in place before that and continue all the way back to the first step. So those can all actually be applied
Yes.
in your own life from an emotions vulnerability standpoint, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
So let's quickly circle back. So with your emotions and then feeling very, very vulnerable, does anything jump out at you that you felt you gained from that after all of that happened?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I just felt better. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just physically, mentally, emotionally, I felt better. I was able to then do the things that helped me, that while I was feeling those emotions, how I'm trying to say this right. So one of the things I was like, oh, I feel worthless, I'm not amounting to anything or something like that. As I was wallowing in those emotions and then release and process them, then I was able to do something about it. I was like, well, why did I feel that? You know, what can I start to do now that will make me feel productive? That'll make me feel this, you know what I mean? And I was already doing some things. The emotions were a bit dramatic, but it made me more productive this week because I was able to do stuff, you know, like whereas before just carrying it and then not knowing what it was. And then it made me like not want to do stuff because I was feeling weird. And then finally I felt it. And then I was like, oh, now that I've done this, I can be able, you know, so those are a couple of things I could think of. Yeah.
You know, something that I thought about when you were saying that was I was chatting with a friend the other day, and he actually said to me, he said, God, I'm so tired. It's like everybody around me I know is so tired. And I said, oh, I said, well, like, is there any stuff going on? Like emotional
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah. And he started naming off
Yeah.
stuff he was going through, right? And I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
like, that's why you're tired. Because it actually
Yeah. Yeah.
takes
Exactly.
a
Yeah,
lot
my
of
energy is so
energy.
much better now. And like, yeah, I can say the exact same things. A few friends in my life, you know, they commented the post and like somebody, you know, who I've seen in person, you know, and I know they're taking on a ton, like they're doing so much. And, you know, they resonated with my post. They're like, you know, wow, I can relate to this. I'm like, yeah, I imagine you can. Because like you're like, I didn't say this, obviously, you know, but it was like, wow, yeah, like you're taking on so much and it's wearing you down, you know, like it's hard, you know, when you take on all those things. And you know, we do get tired. And I think that's the difficulty of the reality we live in the capitalistic nature and trying to,
Yeah.
you know, even just trying to survive. There's this like productivity pressure because we need to pay bills and do all this stuff. And sometimes, and then you got kids or you got whatever, you know, and then it's hard, man. It's hard. Yeah.
It's crazy. And then we throw the cost of living in there as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And like,
And
I know
it's
for
getting
me,
harder.
it's absolutely getting harder. And I know for me, like this week was a lot because I was hitting my end, right, road. Like things had to start happening, you know.
Mm.
And my faith was like, God, you know, you work so hard, and I mean, something's got to break, something's got to break, something's
Mm.
got to break, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I would allow myself to sit within those times where, you know what, I'm just going to bawl for an hour. I'm going to put on a sad movie. I'm going to eat a bag of potato chips, and I'm going to cry, right?
Mm.
And then, so let's go back to female male. So there, that's my female energy. My yin was nurturing and allowing myself to feel and all of that. And then the yang would come in and be like, all right, we're done.
Yeah.
Let's get
Yeah.
up, brush off
Yeah.
your knees, wash your face, get back to it. And if we allow ourselves to honor the fact that both of those sides of us are both 100% valid and okay to be in, whether you're a male, whether you're a woman, however you define, we would be golden.
Yeah. That's it. You nailed it. I think that's the cherry on top of this conversation here.
Yeah. So let's wrap up. I know that you've got to go. So what else do you want to add to the conversation before we plan our next one?
I don't know. I think that was it. I think you just kind of brought it like full circle there. The yin and yang together. They're both, you know, it's like, again, low vibes, high vibes, masculine, feminine. We're all of this. We're all of this, and it's messy, and it's not going to be perfect, and we need to do the work. but we need to take breaks. That was something else that I realized too. It's like, you know, after I had my little mental breakdown there, emotional breakdown, was like, sometimes you need to not try so hard. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you're like, you got to do this, got to do that, got to go, got to get this done. You know what I mean? Sometimes, or if you're trying to work on something like a project or a video and it's just like not working, it's like, this won't come together. It's like, sometimes you just need to step away. Like maybe that's not what you're supposed to be doing right now. And then, or maybe, but sometimes you do need to push through, it's like, again, find the balance. I don't know.
But also have trust, because honestly,
Yes.
so I have spent a ridiculous amount of time building my TikTok account, creating my content, writing my content, setting up my lighting, recording over and over. Like I've spent an insane amount of time doing that. And so then I would sit there and I would say to myself, like, what are you doing? And then I would get tired, and then I would hear the voices of my, family or friends like, oh, TikTok, you're wasting your time, whatever. Those voices would come in my head, only to hear somebody say to me today, your TikTok, sealed deal.
Yeah.
Right?
Fuck yeah.
So
yeah.
When
yes.
Like, right? So here I was, and I invested a ton of time in this thing to have this person say to me, this is exactly what we're looking for.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know what? If you're doing something and A, it feels good, B, it's working.
Yeah.
Like it's not breaking, it's not whatever,
Yeah.
Be patient, because
yes.
Sometimes if we focus too much on pushing for the outcome, we miss the destination.
Yes.
We go right by.
You can get disappointed because your destination isn't here yet. So you're like, oh man, you're halfway there though, but you don't know that, like
you don't know it. So
yeah.
Okay, Grant, website, and what do you got going on? Anything that you want to share with people?
Yeah, just right now I'm creating some meditation programs. So I got a foundational meditation program on my website, granthatcher.com. I'm creating a spiritual program as well, just to kind of learn how to tap into your spirituality. And they all just kind of build off each other. So I'm just going to keep building more content. So yeah, just check out the website, check out my TikTok. I got 2 TikToks. So I got Grant Hatcher Serious, that's this stuff. And then I got Grant Hatcher Silly, which is the funny stuff. But I'm both of those all at once. So yeah. And just thank you, Deanna. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on here. These chats are great.
Oh, you know what? It is like every now and then you meet somebody where you're like, bam, the synergy's like, boom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I can talk. Like, let's keep it serious. I can talk, right? And I could do an hour podcast all by myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Oh, me too. No problem. Yeah. And me and you could go for 10 hours, I'm sure, and not even blink. Like I know. We could. Yeah.
It would be like, Grant, I'm getting hungry, man.
Yeah.
I gotta pee.
That's too low vibe for me. Don't eat. We're fasting. Yeah.
That's right. But so tomorrow this will be on YouTube as well. This will also be over on Spotify. Once it gets to Spotify, it filters out. Our other podcast is now streaming on all major platforms: Amazon, Audible, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, on and on and on and on. So, it's great. And then, of course, also it'll be in YouTube in a video format. So, we'll decide what our next topic is going to be and schedule it in, and it's great. I think it's awesome.
All right. Sounds good, Deanna. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here, buddy. We will talk soon. Everybody that was here and everybody that views it later on, thank you.